So we are now live on the Human People event page. Welcome to Human People. Today we have a very special guided meditation. So I've invited two guests on with us. Reiki master with over 15 years of experience. She's also a teacher, life coach, and spiritual counselor, Brenda. And our friend Greg, who is a Toronto-based visual artist. So Greg had a spiritual awakening that had brought out his creativity. So today I've invited them on to talk about their experiences, spirituality, meditation, and art. So Brenda, if you'd like to maybe just share a bit on your experiences leading up to your decision to get into Reiki healing, and what really, like, when did you really know that it was your calling to help others heal?
Keep it under an hour.
You're in the hot seat. You're in the hot seat.
I'm in the hot seat. You started with me. Hi everyone. I'm Brenda. I started doing when I was about 20. I went for my first Reiki appointment, and it blew me away. I was a very stuck young adult. Didn't have any emotional attachments to anything. I was kind of frozen. So it made me emotional, and it gave me all the energy in the world. So I thought it was really amazing. Shortly after that, I met my Reiki master, actually on an online chat line. And the very quick funny story with that, we were supposed to date, but instead he became my Reiki master. So yeah. So after that, I realized shortly after learning energy healing, I realized I was meant to be a healer. I was meant to help and heal people. And I've always wanted to help and heal people. So I knew it was my calling at that point. Now, of course, since then, I've learned other modalities to do and to teach. And right now, there's one called the Learning Path Integrated, which I've integrated my other healings into. And because I've integrated those healings, I now call it multidimensional trauma healing. And it's been very popular right now. I guess with everyone staying at home, everyone's forced to deal with their crap. So everyone's kind of calling me up and saying, hey, can you clear me? Can you heal me of my past traumas? So I've been doing that a lot lately.
So I know that there's like a long distance Reiki healing. Is that something that you've tried as well too, or?
Yeah, yep. Actually, because of the social distancing, more people have been open-minded to trying the distant healing. And the distant healing sort of works. Like I've become a proxy, or I have my little tiny cute little Reiki bear, and I transfer the energy like over to me and the bear, and then I basically do the healing on the person. Through the bear, and then I send the healing back to the person. And then usually I tell them, just to be laying in bed at nighttime, and they can just absorb this ball of energy when they're ready, which is great. And then the Learning Path Integrated is kind of done. The multidimensional stuff is kind of done distantly anyway. So usually they're just laying on my Reiki bed and I'm halfway across the room anyway. So it's no different than being on the other
end of the world.
Yeah, at the other end of the world. It doesn't really matter. Right? The work is still getting done.
Except you have to yell really loud. Okay, relax now.
No, me too. That's what's wonderful about Zoom. Yeah.
So I was just wondering too, because for people who don't know what Reiki is, can you explain a little bit about that? And then I'd also like to know if you've ever done Reiki on somebody who's been kind of skeptical going into that experience.
Yeah, those are really wonderful questions. Yes, Reiki is one of those things, if you've never dealt with energy, you kind of just need to try it out. There's really kind of no easy way to explain it, except for if you understand chakras and you understand, chakra alignment in yoga, basically Reiki balances you out without needing to do all the exercise. So you can just lay on the table or just be sitting in your room on Zoom, and I conduct the treatment, and you just have to be in meditation. So what it does is it aligns your emotional bodies, your emotional systems. So if your first chakra is unblocked, you're going to have issues with money and fear with money. If your power center is blocked, you might be a little timid, or you might be too much of a lion and stamping on everyone's head. And so the energy transmutes through me, through my hands, from the universe. I then give the healing to the person. Then their negative stuff comes up through me and then enters back into the universe for healing. So it's a constant recycling of energy. So I actually never get affected. I usually get healings at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes when she does like a spiritual, like a weekend, what do you call those things?
Oh yeah, if I
Like
do
a
a
show,
lot,
like a, what's it called?
like if I do some health show,
Like a house show where she's doing it like 9, 10 times that day. She's like just buzzing with energy. You can actually see her body vibrating. She's so full of energy. But I was just going to say, she's a little bit modest sometimes when she talks about things. She also does it for long-term care. Well, she did it for long-term care centers. And one of the guys there had Parkinson's, and he couldn't even like get up from his Parkinson's. It was so bad, get out of bed. And Brenda had spent a few months with him, and it actually was like going to his doctor's appointments rather than being, in bed. And the other thing is, my old chiropractor, he used to be Brenda's client. So he was a healer going to another healer kind of thing, right? And he's a big guy. He's around 250 pounds. He's a big burly guy. And every time Brenda would give him a treatment, he'd be like, "Oh man, like I feel like I've had like 3 or 4 glasses of wine. There's no way I can see another client for a little bit of time." Because it makes you feel really kind of spacey and good as well at the same time. But with Brenda, I've had a lot of Reiki treatments. And with Brenda, as soon as she puts her hands on you, within, I would say, 20 seconds, you feel as though you just hit a cloud. You're just sort of like floating in the cloud. It's incredible, her energy.
So with Greg talking about that aspect is that I've done my type of healing. For me, I also teach. So I train people to be Reiki practitioners. And I'm kind of a hard ass. There's no weekend Reiki treatment with me. The first level of Reiki that you do, instructing, so like learning. When you first connect with me, you got to do a whole lot of learning, and you got to heal yourself first. So the first year is healing your baggage, because the emptier you are, the more divine white light you can get in. And if you can get divine white light in, then you can be more powerful. So you have to empty out your crap.
So would you say that if you're looking at having the experiences of helping somebody else to heal, if you don't do the work on yourself first, that really does affect your ability to help others, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Because I've, some people have gone to even learn from other Reiki practitioners, and there were weekend courses. And some people can do a weekend course and be there for their clients. I'm not like totally dissing it, but I think, to have a really powerful healer, it should be sacred, and it should take quite a while. It took me 4 years to become a Reiki master. And a funny story with that one is I had to clear my house of a bad spirit, my childhood home. And then my Reiki master just said, "You're a Reiki master now." So it's kind of funny. So I do that too. I also get rid of bad spirits. They don't like me. I am one of my people that I've worked with and healed with. She said that I'm a spiritual. Those bondage people with the whips. I'm like a spiritual. I'm like a spiritual whipping person.
Spiritual dominatrix.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, I couldn't remember what she said, but it was funny.
Get that in court. Your Honor, I'm a spiritual dominatrix.
So if we can just kind of, I guess, segue into talking with Greg about your spiritual awakening. And I know that this is a very unique partnership between the two of you. For Brenda to be practicing Reiki, and then for you to have been studying meditation and to experience your own awakening. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like what led up to that?
Hold on. So this is how we ended up getting together. I was reading Reiki books and he was reading Buddhist books at the same place that we were working. So this is how we became together.
And that's how you connected.
And if anyone is looking to connect with me as a Reiki healer, you can connect with me at www.c4.ca. So anyway,
I just put up on the screen.
Greg's going to put it up on the screen. See, he's my administration. So there you go. You can have Greg now.
So just to anyone who, sorry to cut you off there, but for anyone who is wanting to get in contact with Robin, in the description of the event, there is her website is linked there, as well as Greg's. And I pass it over to you.
Yeah,
Robin.
Brenda. Robin or Brenda? Am I sleeping with the wrong person?
Dyslexia is kicking in.
It's
okay. With Robin, for her, she's gone through somewhat of an awakening through the Reiki healing aspect and so on and so forth. So she could empathize with me, even though I was driving her crazy the first weekend that it occurred. So what was your question? You want to know about the awakening?
Yeah.
Your spiritual awakening, like what happened?
How long did you
leading up to the moment that you decided that you needed to make art, and what brought about that decision?
Okay, so I was in a retreat situation for about a year, and I was doing yoga 2 times a day, and I was meditating 4 times a day, and I was doing walking meditations. I was listening to dissertations from the Zen masters, so on and so forth. So with all the, and before that I had a background in martial arts. So I was introduced to, I spent 13 years in martial arts. So that Zen Buddhism aspect of meditating in that and opening up the different nadis or the energy systems in your body, what we call chi energy or ki energy, is all similar to the prana and everything, the chakras. Everything is, when I write my book, first thing I'm going to say is everything comes from the same source. People just interpret it differently. And then that aspect that the chi that runs through your body is the same as the prana and so on and so forth. So I had introduction to it, but on a different level than chakra systems per se. We talk about the hara, which is 2 inches below your belly button, which is very similar to the sacral chakra, right? This kind of thing. So all this meditation was going on, and I was doing the yoga. And first thing that happened was the kundalini awakening. Now, back in the day where people used to do hallucinogenics, if you ever did LSD or acid, what would happen? You get this cold shiver when it starts to affect you that runs up your spine. And I think these hallucinogenic drugs have the same, they're like keys that open doors to different dimensions. And it's the same thing as the kundalini awakening. Or the other side of it is a person who's a born-again Christian, and they're touched by the Holy Spirit. And the most happiest, lovely, amazing people, they shake and go all crazy, all kinds of stuff. That's because they've opened up a chakra. But because they have a connotation, a religious connotation, they call it touched by the Holy Spirit. It's all the same concept that's happening. We just, depending on what culture you come from, is what you're going to label it, basically. So about 10 years ago, when it first started happening, music took, like, I was never creative. When I was in high school, my teacher said, I'll pass you in grade 9 art, but never take art again. I'll give you your 50% mark. So I had no creativity per se in that aspect of my life. I enjoy art, seeing art, and I appreciate the masters and that kind of stuff, but I wasn't a creative person per se.
Except he did really awesome doodles.
Well, that's just doodling around. It's not anything from a real artistic standpoint. So when this started happening, the first thing I guess was music and chanting became so amazingly special. I would sit there, I would cry for like 8 hours listening to Ramadasa say so hung as one of these healing yoga chants. I guess it's from Kundalini yoga. And for some reason that really affected me, and I would just bawl my eyes out for hours. So I went through up and down emotions, but I mean like extreme emotions, from crying because I'm so happy and so blissed out to feeling all the pain and suffering of the world for a couple of days, where I just cried on the other side of the coin. And besides the music affecting me, I was sitting on the bed this one time in the morning. I think Brenda was at work, and I started having this cold sensation in my lower spine, and it was like, and as this pressure built, it felt like an orgasm, but it felt like a whole entire body orgasm.
Oh my God.
It was like 5,000 times stronger than a sexual orgasm, and I couldn't even talk. I couldn't. It was like
Like
as the
Right.
kundalini rises, so the snake is sleeping, is dormant in the bottom of your spine as it starts to move up to the lumbar region. And then it hits the sacral region. And the sacral region is also responsible for creativity as well as sexual. And I've always been whacked out when it comes to an extremist, from workaholic to drugs to women to what you name it, right? And then when this sacral balancing happened, I balanced out so much of those aspects. So we talk about Buddha being the middle way. It truly is for me, because I found my balance through meditation and that. So as it moves further up, it's just massive body orgasm, and it lasted for probably 5 hours, and I was totally drained in my brain. But my nickname is Third Eye Junkie, so I'm always looking for more. So I went back and I did the Ramadasa CD again and built up all this. But I could actually feel, if you put like a piece of paper on my hand, you could actually see it almost rising up. That's how much energy was coming out of these energy systems. They're not as in my hands. And then when Brenda came home, I started talking to her about it, and she was giving me some pointers and doing Reiki. And when I was looking at her, the whole room would start changing. And I would see like pioneer days, for instance, that would be like a log cabin behind her. She'd be dressed differently and her face would be differently. Like, wow, like I'm freaking out here. And then I realized, and then all of a sudden it would change again. It was like the medieval days. I was watching her past lives. And then when I was looking at people on the street, I could see their auras as well. And one time on the bus, there's this lady with those, those punched in dog faces. What are they called? I forget the name. They're like bulldogs, but they're smaller. They're supposed to be reincarnated lamas from Tibet. And when I started looking at this dog, I could see the lama within the dog. And I said to the lady, she's like, why are you freaking out on my dogs? And I said, your dog has a lama. There's a past life in there. She thought it was kind of weird, but she was listening to what I was saying. And then it was on the subway system. I was back into this guy playing the violin. And I just again, sat there for 6 hours and listened to him and cried. And he thought this was really cool. This guy's really loves my music, right? But you also get this aspect of, I had total freedom. I was so expanded that Buddha talks about having the universe in the palm of your hand. I could actually see the universe sort of in the palm of my hand. It's so hard to explain. You have the mental aspect of it, and then you have the spiritual aspect. There's a huge gap between, you can't put things in words, as people say. So I could see auras. I could look at you and I could read your aura and this kind of stuff. And we went up north with my daughter and her boyfriend at the time. And when I woke up in the morning, the whole place looked like a Monet painting. It was the most beautiful landscape I've ever seen in my life. And I was so hot. This kundalini is so much energy running through your system that I was drinking liters of water. Brenda thought I was going to die from drinking too much water. Versus booze, drugs, and now I'm drinking too much water. So actually that's funny, because my Zen master said, Greg, he took me aside and he said, I don't want you to do any meditation for 3 months. I just want you to do walking meditation, but no higher, sitting on the mat meditation. And I went, wow, I did this, I did that. I finally find my spirituality. Now you're telling me not to meditate? Talking about being.
But that you have to consistently work to maintain, right? Is that an experience that you've had, that you have to be consistent in the effort you're putting forward?
Yeah. So just a side note, my daughter gave me a book on Buddhism. It's a little handbook. You could read parts of the sutras in that and the Buddhist sayings. And I'd understand them from an intellectually standpoint, but that weekend, I could understand them from a massively deeper standpoint. I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And I realized all you need to do is to be this point that I was in, which is complete expansion and no stress and no fear, was to let go of your fear. So if I said, Nicole, just let go of your fear. And you'll be in this state of satori, or whatever you want to call it, right? This awakened state. But I was yelling this at people walking by when we were camping. All you can do is let go of your fear and you'll be better. So I didn't have
enthusiastic about it, right?
Sorry?
Get enthusiastic about it, right?
Way beyond enthusiastic. Brenda was going to throw me in KMH.
It's I understood what he was going through, but it was driving me nuts as well, because I'm like, okay, dude, I'm walking behind you and you're telling me I'm crunching the leaves too loudly.
I could hear the trees whispering in the forest.
Right,
they talked about that in the native aspect of walking through the forest and hearing the trees talk to each other. I could actually hear that whisper, and I was trying to tell her, shh, be quiet. I'm trying to listen to the trees. So
Okay.
continue on.
So I already knew what was going on. He had opened up everything. He ripped everything open at once. So he was really, really, really high in his head. This is where they say you can sometimes go crazy if you have a kundalini, like a spiritual awakening. It's because you need to have a right master. So of course, because I was there, I was able to help him come back to earth a little bit. Because I said, if I don't help you come back to earth, you're going to go into KMH.
You want me to hold your horn?
So.
I can hold your horn. If you finish blowing it.
But I kind of really brought him back to earth. But the great thing that came out of that was Greg had said to me one day, he goes, I feel like doing art. Well, I have a background being a hair colorist. So I got him 5 colors, taught him how to mix colors. And then here's the story from that point on from Greg, how he got into art.
Oh, I'm going too slow, is what you're saying.
So I wanted to ask you about the importance of just kind of grounding your energy after an experience like that. What does that mean when you've reached such kind of like
not to meditate anymore and had trees? That's where my nickname Tree Hugger came in as well. Because I was told to ground myself, and the best way to ground yourself besides walking meditation is to hug trees because you're rooted in the ground. So every time somebody saw me, I was hugging a tree. So on Facebook, when I was on Facebook, my nickname became Tree Hugger. And then when I was running the Toronto Art Collective, people knew me as Tree Hugger. They didn't even know my first name. They called me Tree Hugger all the time. So that's where that nickname came from. That's the best way to ground yourself. Now, what you were saying is, because I'm a third eye junkie, as this was going away, or I was internalizing these feelings, I kept meditating to try to bring them back. So I spent from 6 to like 12 hours, literally, sometimes 12 hours a day meditating to get this feeling coming back. And eventually it just dispersed. But I was told I integrated it. Now, if you listen on my YouTube channel, spiritual meditations for troubled times, it's called. I have it's about 50 minutes long. And it talks about the whole entire aspect of the awakening. So as it was slipping away, I was trying to bring it back by meditating and so on more and more, right? And eventually it just sort of integrated into me and everything just settled back down. But if it didn't, this is how people, I think a lot of people that have these mental disorders in KMH are just going through a spiritual emergency. They don't realize it. So I basically had a textbook. If you ever read Jack Kornfield, something of the heart.
Yeah, Path to the Heart.
Path of the Heart. He talks about spiritual kundalini awakenings, forced kundalini awakenings, and almost everything in there I checked off, check boxes. But the other part of it is you have the ecstasy for the bliss aspect of it, and then there's the tragedy aspect of it. Because when the kundalini arises, if you force it, like I do with the spontaneous awakening, the tail of the snake smacks you in the neck. So I ended up with chronic pain disorder. And I've talked to a few gurus who've gone through the same thing. Bart Smith, who's a deep channeler, we had the same birthday 1 year apart. And his night of the soul or whatever, and all the things that happened to him and his spiritual awakening were very similar. And this pain, he goes, that's what's happening is the kundalini, it's karma. No one walks away without karma, right? So because you forced this ecstasy opening, when you weren't ready for it, it smacks you in the neck, and you end up with all this chronic pain disorder. But his went away. What am I?
You're in your 50s now.
57 and 56, and he's 57. So around, I think he's like in his 60 now. But he said, by the time you're 56, your pain will go away, and you become a really great teacher, a spiritual person to pass it on to other people, right? To help them go through the same thing you went through, basically. And I've noticed in the last year, my pain is becoming less. And I used to take OxyContin, which I weaned way down, and I'm taking the other side, the CBD side of it. But just from where I couldn't walk up the stairs when this first happened, I was like, it took me I remember at the TTC, it took me an hour to walk up the TT stairs to the top. So my pain has gone extremely gone low. I mean, it bounces, but now it's much lower than it was way back then. So it's going away. So so what's happening now since I started the spiritual group up again, and I'm meditating on a much more regular basis, that feeling of the kundalini rising again is starting to happen again. My main blocks is in is in the power center chakra and in the heart chakra. So when I'm listening to, or I'm chanting, I feel like I have a giant ball in my throat and I'm going to throw it up. And Brenda thinks like, I'm going to really throw up. I'm like, because I'm opening up these more channels, the main channels of the kundalini. And my whole body starts to tingle, but it only lasts for a short period of time. But I know I'm on the right track. So this COVID started being the best thing for me as far as going back to where I was before. But now I'm much more mature, so I wouldn't deal with it in the same way, yell and scream at people. Just let go of your fear.
So I had a question about kind of the spiritual aspects of healing versus the physical. So living in a material world, being connected to physical reality, we have ailments that come up physically that manifest in our bodies. We have mental illness, we have emotional issues. How can spiritual treatment benefit people who have these issues when it comes to physical ailments, mental illness, and emotional trouble?
Well, a lot of your physical ailments and a lot of your mental health issues are coming from blocked chakras, if you want to look from that standpoint, right? But what they do, remember I said, with drugs and certain things are like keys that open up doors in different dimensions, right? So with a mental illness, like somebody who's psychotic, suffers from psychosis, they've opened up these doors, but they have no idea to deal with it. So when a lot of people with mental illness, they don't bathe on a regular basis, right? So, but why bathe? Why care about this three-dimensional world when you have your foot in a fourth dimensional world or whatever, and you're talking to these beings that are much more interesting than the people on Earth per se. So they give you drugs to make these things go away, and they say, oh, it's all in your mind. Well, it is in your mind, but it's dimensional aspects in your mind. I mean, Brenda's probably better in answering the physical aspect because that's more of a chakra thing than I'm trying to educate people on this is what's happening to you. You're not crazy or whatever. And let's go through these aspects. But as far as rebalancing everything, that's where I would bring Brenda in to do that part of it.
Yeah. So Brenda, could I get you to weigh in on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And don't forget to mention how it affected you in the art too.
Yeah, well.
So like perfect example is people would say back in the day that you were probably quite bipolarish. He would go from like third eye junkie, very, very, very extreme to like just like, sleeping hundreds of hours a day. And I find a lot of people that have chakra imbalances are actually what they really consider bipolar, right? So, and usually when I work with anybody who has bipolar and I start balancing their chakras, usually the bipolar goes away. So I've had like 4 or 5 clients that have totally weaned off of their medication because they no longer need it anymore.
With their doctors.
Obviously, with their doctor.
I'm not going to say which one. I mean, there's a meaning for some drugs. Right. Some drugs definitely help people because they're so far lost in that world, they're probably never going to come back.
And a perfect example for that one is actually my mom. My mom does have schizophrenia, and she is very gifted like me, but she can't handle it. She doesn't understand it. So where I can understand what's going on with me spiritually, she can't. So she does need to take a little bit of medication. And with a social working background, I never tell anyone to stop their medication because,
And I think it's important to remember that everybody does have their own kind of healing path. Yeah. And it does take kind of trial and error a lot of the times to find what really does stabilize you and center you. Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering what you had in store for the guided meditation. For those who didn't know, Gregg will be leading us today in the guided meditation.
Well, the first one we did, the one is the one that everybody's been doing, healing the planet from the COVID-19, or what I call the Chinese Communist Party virus, because that's where it originated from, and all the other viruses are where they originated from. Like Obama, I'm trying to say, mixed up with Ebola. Came from a river in, named after the river, and so on and so forth. So why would it change now? Because we're talking about, China. So it's basically it's the CPP virus, I would call it. But just to throw back for one sec. So because of this opening of this creativity chakra, that's where I became an artist. I dropped out of the corporate world and I dedicated myself, and I started painting, and people said, can I buy that? I'm like, wow, I've never created something with my own hands that someone wanted to buy. So I've done over 1,100 paintings now in 10 years. And most of them I've sold. So that in that aspect, it's been pretty good. So going into this meditation, yeah, so it's the one that everyone's doing around the world. We did it on the first date. I can't remember what day that was. Was that March 1st or when did we first do it?
I think it was back in, yeah.
Times.
Didn't we do it a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
March 21st.
Yeah.
24th.
So for those who don't know, Greg does host meditations almost daily on Zoom. So if you are interested, his email address is artbygam@gmail.com. Send him an email and maybe you can join us for one night.
Yeah, I'll just type some of the stuff up and I'll just put up on there. Okay, so the idea of this meditation is to heal the world from this virus. Now you can look at the virus as being an evil energy, or it could be a spirit, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, there's the biology aspect of it, right? That, oh, it's made up of a virus and it has cells and a nucleus. It doesn't, because it's RNA. But anyways, there's that living aspect to it. And that there's also that aspect that it could be it's man-made from a laboratory. And if that's true, then with that intention of the making it, can put that negative energy into it. So it could be deemed to be an evil spirit, if that makes any sense. So if you're used to meditating, put yourself in your normal meditation position, whatever that may be.
Are we starting it now?
Yeah, we're starting it now, right?
Yeah. Did you want to put on your music?
Yep, I was going to do that in a second. And if you're not used to meditating, you can just either lay down on the ground in a comfortable position or sit in a chair. Just make sure that your spine is straight. That's the main thing, because you want the kundalini to be able to move, right, the energy in your system, per se. And I'll just put some background music in. And then when I'm not talking, believe it or not, I don't usually talk very much, you'll have the music. So listen to the music as part of the meditation as well.
As you listen to the music, the first thing we need to do is to get grounded. The best way to get grounded is to visualize roots growing out of the bottom of your feet or legs, or if you're laying down, it could be the total backside of you, into the ground, into the cement, through the cement, to the sand, and into the rock, and all the way into the middle of the universe, or the earth rather. Now I would like you to take 5 clearing breaths. So breathe into your nose and push the air down into your lower tummy like a balloon. Hold it for a second and then slowly breathe it out. Exhale through your mouth. Try to put your tongue at the top of your mouth as it completes that particular circuit. Now for those who aren't used to this kind of meditation, what you can focus on is white light, healing white light coming into the universe, covering you and everyone else and everything on the planet Earth. Is healing white light to get rid of the virus. So what we'll start with is we'll state our intention. This meditation is a tool to shift the planet into the most optimal timeline, and as a tool to completely remove the coronavirus. As you listen to the music, I want you to visualize a pillar of brilliant white light emanating from the cosmic central sun. Then being distributed to essential suns of all galaxies in the universe. Then visualize this light entering through the galactic central sun when going through our galaxy, then entering our solar system and going through all beings of light inside our solar system, and then through all beings on planet Earth, and also through your body to the center of the Earth. Visualize all this light transmuting all remaining coronavirus on Earth, disinfecting all infected areas on the planet, healing all the patients, removing all the fear associated with the epidemic, and restoring stability. Visualize the course of events on planet Earth shifting into the most positive timeline possible, shifting away from all pandemics, epidemics, away from all wars, away from all global domination, away from the deep state controlling the planet, away from child abuse and child sexual and adult slavery or sexual exploitation, away from the medicine that makes us more sick than better, away from the food full of genetically modified organisms, away from chem sprays that are polluting our skies and blocking the sun, stopping the photons for activating our DNA for us to move to a higher vibration or to ascend. Away from the 5G network without testing it properly to make sure it's not going to affect our DNA or anything else with electromagnetic waves. Away from social control where the mass media wants us to think and behave a certain way. Away from not understanding each other, not giving the other person an opportunity to explain themselves and to talk or agree, just to disagree. Away from judging people without knowing what they're all about. Away from these other aspects that are destroying our planet. Away from the deep state operatives trying to control our money rather than going back into the gold standard and away from the petrodollar. Away from the oil industry and other contaminants of the world, and allowing all this so-called classified energy sources to be released, anti-gravity devices, a little box that is free that gives you energy for your house for the rest of your life. The deep space program where there's these massive ships kilometers long and working with different extraterrestrials. Let all this come to light. We are strong enough, we can handle this. Now visualize the course of events on planet Earth shifting into the most positive timeline possible. Visualize white, pink, blue, and golden light, healing all inequalities, erasing all poverty, and bringing abundance to all humanity. Visualize a new grand cosmic cycle of Age of Aquarius, beginning bringing pure light, love, and happiness to all beings on Earth. And now, we will sit in meditation for the next 10 minutes and focus on this beautiful white healing light running through our bodies into the earth and spreading it all across for all humanity and all plants and surfaces that can be affected, and clearing it and disinfecting everything. Namaste. As we approach the end of the meditation, I would like you to consider how beautiful you feel at this point, and remember, anytime you're stressed out, you can always come back to these feelings. Now, as your spiritual body comes back to your physical body, I want you to shake your arms and your legs off, and your neck and your shoulders, and slowly open your eyes and come back to the meditation group. Thank you. Namaste.
Yeah, so every time we do a meditation, I always have a different experience. I know the last couple times I've fallen dead asleep. Wake up and the Zoom meeting is still going, but everybody's gone, and I'm thinking, what the hell? But we did a meditation last night where you asked us to visualize a samurai standing over us who's going to like cut our head off if we don't focus our intent, which I thought was a really cool exercise.
Thanks. Oh, you froze. My lips are moving, but I can't understand what you're saying.
Greg, you're still sharing your screen.
Are you back? Yeah. Can you see the screen with the information?
Yeah, I can see it. Can I interact with it?
Sure.
Is it working?
What are you trying to do with it? Talk to it?
She's typing.
Trying to make a new friend.
Oh, can you type on my screen?
I don't know.
High tech.
Can I?
I don't think so.
No, I can't.
You can add something to it.
There was a TV show back in the 90s called Ghost Rider, and it was about the spirit that possessed a computer and would communicate with a group of preteens. and they would solve mysteries together.
Was that a movie or a
No, it was a TV series.
I remember a movie, something like that before. What do I want to say? Oh, yeah. If you're looking at open your kundalini, hopefully it won't happen the same way with me. You really need to have a guru or a teacher to guide you along the way, something that I lacked. And I realized all the mistakes I'd made, especially with doing the yoga on top of it. It actually made it even stronger. I was doing half-an-hour headstands, meditating on my head for half an hour a day, which probably wasn't a good thing to do since I'm not the young stud I used to be back in the day when I was in martial arts. So I thought I could do these things, but obviously they had a detrimental effect on my body. So do we have a minute? Are we finished?
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes left.
Leave that up for a minute. Okay. I just want to do the just a little saying that when you do, I just read the first line, and either you can repeat out loud to yourself or inside your head, you can repeat the line. And it's basically to just make sure that we're in the present. Remember I had said that even though you're accessing memories from the past, or you're thinking about what we call future pacing, what you're going to be doing in the future, it's still happening now in the present. So the only thing that exists is now. So the more you can start to, as Eckhart Tolle says, the more you can be present here, the more your life changes, because you realize that this is the only thing there is. So why would you want to do anything to affect it? Like what's the sense of being lost in memories when the only thing that really matters is what's happening at this particular time right now? So if you're laying down or just in a meditation position still, just this little saying that we do, I would say majority of the meditations went this way. So there's no one to see. There's no place to go. There's no one to meet. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to gain. And there's nothing to lose, as everything is perfect in this moment as it is. I thank my higher self. I thank my ancestors. And I thank those of the future. I also thank the universe for providing me the opportunity to learn vital lessons during these difficult times. I will look upon these vital lessons with a positive attitude and a loving heart. And I will handle all situations with love, compassion, and confidence. Namaste. Thank you.
Well, I want to take a moment to thank you both for coming on today to talk about Reiki meditation, your art, and doing the meditation. Really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Nicole, and human people.
People, human people.
Human people.
Well, that was the joke between Natalia and I. Natalia's my business partner and friend who runs Human People with me. So we were just talking about, well, what are we going to name this thing? And we were talking about, I'm human, but she's definitely not human. There's no way. She's totally an incarnated alien being.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that one.
Yeah, she's not from here.
Very special extraterrestrial person.
I find people who have a lot of stomach conditions, Actually, I just want to interject that I think that they're not from here. This is the reason why we don't like the food here, and we have issues with the food here. So just a observation I thought, because I've had that issue too all my life.
Are you also an extraterrestrial?
I have been told that I'm from Vega. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and Vega people, they like their hair color and they like to dance around and be very fairy-like. So, which is very much my personality. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again.
And I think Greg is an Arcturian.
Okay. Arcturian?
Yeah, I think so. He's like the big, warrior guy, So, yeah.
Okay.
Look how your face lights up when you say that.
The Cheerans are known to be extremely intelligent and good looking and very spiritual.
Genius, prolific.
Yes. Okay, thank you for having us, Nicole.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.